Everything that we are has come from getting curious and asking why, how, and having that, again, as one of my really early understandings, made me always more curious to figure out the why and how myself than to just pay someone to do the thing. And that adaptability, that determinism to figure it out has leaked into every aspect of my life. And I think that's one thing that I hope that through my life I can reach out and invite others to do, is to get curious, get physical, stumble through things, be willing to fail, and enjoy the process of learning something new just because. Just try shit. Just try shit. We're here on Earth dancing in a fucking monkey suit. Like, why wouldn't we just try shit?
I'm Jeff Scult. I have been on a healing and revealing journey, following my thread to my inner gold. My great honor in life is to sit with the golden ones and discover what they've released in terms of their past stuck stories, what they've revealed in terms of who they are anew, and within that, how we can each celebrate the art of living life golden. Welcome to Drops of Gold.
Hey there, Golden Ones. This episode of Drops of Gold is powered by One Golden Thread, the regenerative nature fashion brand that I created from my mind's eye that we can all live in regenerosity. Enjoy the program, and we've got a special code for you later on to share. You are golden. We are all connected, better together as one golden thread.
The biggest lesson was just gently knowing how to steer without being forceful. You know, encouraging everyone to hold the space no matter how uncomfortable it became. And it became wildly uncomfortable. And while in the room, just getting everyone to sit in it and let these individuals say their piece, because they had a tremendous trauma release that they needed to let out. And as we were circling around, you know, trauma as one of the primary issues that we were looking to solve, and how do we create safer spaces? You know, that was the whole intention of bringing people in to create safer, more diverse spaces. And the fact that it backfired was kind of perfect for the experiment, right? And getting everyone to just accept the moment, right? You don't always know what's going to come from any experiment. That's why you call it an experiment. And allowing what is to be what is rather than what you think it's supposed to be. Encouraging that, and knowing how to open the release valve just slightly. There were a couple times where I invited everyone to step out, get some sunshine, take a breath, everyone get in a circle, have some sage. Now let's go back in the room and not just drop it. Let's continue in this quagmire that we find ourselves in, because this is the medicine that we need in this moment.
It's funny. We're starting before we're starting, which is beautiful because we're always beginning. And you've already touched on something that's so potent about what's happening in the world right now, which is the understanding the delineation between power and force. And I really love the fact that you went there, because as somebody who is so forceful can come with so much gravitas to actually, as you said, actually, even though the moment could have called for that, to step back and to hold the space and allow others to meet you on the bridge. Yeah. And see themselves on their own bridge. So, yeah, I mean, maybe just talk a little bit about that, about the notion around this delineation between power and force, because within force we're ceasing the listening, and within power we can be invited to ignite.
As you know, as we were just listening inside, my new album is called Warrior Medicine, and it's about the duality of being able to call upon the warrior, which acts with force when needed, overwhelming force when needed, versus the medicine man, which is powerful but not forceful. And I think that in our modern society, we've put way too much emphasis on force. And it's hard for a lot of people to even articulate a delineation, right? Because power can be monetary power. It can be, social clout, whatever you want to call it. But the idea of power as an overbearing force, right? As opposed to knowing our intrinsic passive power, the power of stillness, the power of grace, the power of compassion. Power is so often associated with the masculine and active principle. And I think certainly in our circles and some of the more new age, left wing, for lack of a better word, woke movements, like we're starting to examine how can we hold great power without exerting great force. Yeah.
Well, I love the fact that your album is named Warrior because, as Victory, and so many others, remind, which is what does the warrior do? The warrior is actually there to stand for the peace and keep the peace and ignite from within. And it's interesting as I was meditating over the last couple of days about the fact that after 8 years of knowing each other, this is really our first time to really have a sit down and look at the whites of our eyes and actually have this conversation. This is, I saw the words on somebody's shirt that said world peace. And I started thinking about you, and what came through was word peace. And even when your words have velocity to them, I know where it's coming from, and that's why I wanted to have this sit with you. So, Aryeh, welcome to Drops of Gold, and it's an honor to have you on. And I've been looking forward to this conversation because I admire you as somebody who is truly a multidisciplinary artist. And I saw that you recently wrote a post and you talked about being relentless. So I'd love to go back to your origin story of when, I know that you were born in LA. I know you've lived in LA. I know that outside of, being on a set for a movie, in Vancouver, wherever you've lived in LA. But I'd like to ask the question, where were you formed, right? Which is that notion of like the spaces and the places, and we want to dive into that. But if you want to start with just your origin story of you were born in such a diverse container to begin, so we can begin where we begin.
It's so interesting. Like, we were just inside talking about what's coming next. The next song coming out off the album is called Let You Know, and it's my origin story, like in a just straight 4.5 minute long rap with no chorus. And I'm also working on my one-man show right now, which has been huge for me because I've over the years opened up to telling my story more and more and letting my story become medicine. Medicine for myself and medicine for others, because there's a lot of trauma in my life story that I hid for a long time. And sharing it has helped heal for me. And as I'm now specifically working on this one-man show, it's different when you tell a story sitting across from someone eye to eye versus when you're putting a pen to paper and being really precise with how to put it in a theatrically presented narrative. Especially because you know me, I'm jumping in and out of rhyme schemes. And so thank you for asking the question, because this is so overly present right now. How do I bring my story into the light and share it as powerfully as possible to be medicine for the world? So to keep it as distilled as possible, I was born and raised here in Los Angeles. I come from a Black trans parent. My father is Michelle. She became acutely aware of her trans identity before I was even born. My mother, Jewish, bisexual, they met at a queer mixer party in the San Fernando Valley in the early 80s. And they fell in love as just two creative spirits. My father, Michelle, and this is going to get confusing because I respectfully now use feminine pronouns for her, yet still my father. So Michelle, jazz musician, brilliant, just brilliant mind. Naomi, much like your mother, painter, and multidisciplinary visual artist. They came together, had little old me, and then right after myself, my younger brother. And we were raised from South Central to Silver Lake long before it was Silver Lake, and very, I'm not going to say all the way poor, but very close to, if not like fully poor, very low socioeconomic status as a family. And thank God my parents, brilliant as they are, were able to leverage their understanding of educational systems and got myself and my brother into magnet programs really early. So we got a great education in spite of not being able to afford private schools. But being of, there's no polite way to say it, being of like a really high intellect, but also having a very turbulent household, my intellectual development vastly outpaced my emotional development. So my IQ was first tested when I was in the end of second grade, beginning of third grade, and like jumped into all the gifted magnets. And the pace accelerated to beginning of sixth grade. I was transferred to another school again that was meant to have me graduate from high school by the time you're supposed to finish middle school. So a track to basically graduate from high school at 13. And I won't get into all the tumult of things that were happening at home, but everything broke down at about 11 years old. The pressure of the new school, being ripped from my group of friends, the chaos that was our home life, I had a complete psychological break. Like my darkest night of the soul came at 11. Locked psychiatric facilities, pharmaceutical remedies for my iniquities, on pills and cages, locked up like a lab rat, punk rock skateboard patches on my backpack, black nail polish and an attitude to match that, couldn't tell me shit without having a better comeback. Too smart for my age, at least in terms of intellect, a brilliant mind at war with emotions that ain't developed yet. That's some of the song, and I just fall into it because it's so accessible. But everything was chaotic for several years, and one of the hardest parts for me was figuring out how to be a man, as the only man in my life became a woman, especially becoming a black man, as because of my father's unique circumstances, being raised in a very Southern Christian traditional home. I never knew my black family at all until my bar mitzvah. We don't need to dive into that, but even when I finally got to meet my grandmother and my aunt, there was a touch point, but still a distance. And as a black person in America, especially as a black man in America, you've got like this brief window where you get to be a kid. And you're looked at as like just a kid. But there's a certain point where your height and weight tick over, and suddenly you're a black man in America. And we don't need to get into all that. We all know that there are layers. But I didn't have anyone to teach me about being a black man in America. And that was a stumbling road of self-discovery. And one of the most important puzzle pieces for me was actually discovering the autobiography of Malcolm X. Read that in high school, and it was just like, pfft. And then finally, I've got this powerful black male voice, like, this is what it is. Oh, shit. All these things that I've been experiencing and grappling with, like, there's the handbook. Shit. and I'm getting a little tangential now, but this is all part of the base of where I come from. And in the midst of all this, art became my great release. I got my first guitar when I was 7 years old. That same year, second grade teacher, who was herself a stage mom, made me the lead character in the school play. We did Dr. Seuss's Horton Hatches the Egg for the entire school, and I fought against it. I thought it was so fucking stupid and silly. So fucking stupid. And there was this beautiful moment where I was having a King Kong tantrum in the back of the auditorium as we were rehearsing. And just like, this is fucking dumb. Why do you want me to be this stupid elephant? Like, I've got things to learn. Full tantrum mode. And I remember her taking me away from the rest of the class and get down on one knee and look me in my little eyes. And she acknowledged me. Most importantly, first, she acknowledged everything I said is valid. And with her glorious wisdom, she just said, Aryeh, I was Ari back then. Ari, I'm not going to make you do anything you don't want to do. But the lesson here for you is in leadership, because you're the only one who can do this. So it's not about the play. It's about you learning to lead and help the rest of your class to pull this thing off. And she appealed to my juvenile ego in the most delicate and precise way. Okay, I'll do it. And so the actor was born. And throughout all of this chaos of life, and obviously into my adulthood, art has been my North Star of purpose. It's been a source of power. It's how I process so much. Yeah. So there's two heaping scoops of my origin story to start us off.
There's so much extraordinariness within that, and one of the things that is potent is, you know, that the mirror of the fact that your intellectual development superseded your emotional development, and then the art came in as the certainly the counterbalance, possibly the savior, possibly the release, all the things, possibly the joy, fulcrum, like Madame Gandhi talks about, that, you know, our greatest gift to ourselves is optimizing our joy and then finding our purpose to ignite from within that. And I think that what would be interesting for the listeners to know is, when did you catch up on the emotional side of your beingness? And what was and who were the mentors? Because I appreciate the handbook, the guidebook, and I'd love to also explore, like, what did you read in that guidebook that said, that's how you be a black man in America? And, you know, are there others that have come to continue to mentor? Because it's fascinating when somebody is so creative and so accomplished and so confident. I mean, you know, you own your name. You own your name.
I do now. It took me a while.
So, I mean, there's a lot within there, but maybe we can just start with one of those things, which is, let's just talk about the emotional side of you, in terms of catching up to the intellectual and the artist side of you, because the artist side of you is infinite.
I think I'm still catching up and trying to find the balance where I know that even though my intellect's running 1,000 miles per hour all the time, I get to slow down and trust the heart. It's a constant process. I think middle of high school was a really pivotal time for me. Michelle left, finally. You know, my parents' relationship had been disintegrating and barely functional for a long time. So it's like at the end of my sophomore year, Michelle left, and through my sophomore year, I had really started to dabble with psychedelics. And then through that summer between, like, full dive into psychedelics. And I was really lucky. My girlfriend at the time, her parents were also old school hippies. They had a beautiful place up in Laurel Canyon, and they held a safe container for our little pack of, I'm not going to say hoodlums, but our little pack of budding psychonauts and troublemakers to go full blast off and just explore. And once I had, several deep, divine, full psychedelic experiences, my framework for what life is, for what consciousness is, forever shifted. And the constructs of society and my idea of cognition and life experience that were so much harder to deal with just kind of exhaled. They didn't disappear, but everything became more manageable the moment that the intellectual becomes the experiential, right? Like quantum physics, unified field theory, all these things are fine and well, but it's all intellectual knowledge. But the moment you give someone like a hero's dose of mushrooms, or they sit down for an Aryeh ceremony, or whatever experience it may be, it can be breath work or, the right guided meditation. But the moment you transcend from intellectual knowledge to experiential knowledge, something releases. And that was massively pivotal for me, having these continued safe psychedelic journeys that allowed my intellect and my race to try and process all this shit to settle into more of the heart and the spirit. Now, granted, 15, 16 years old, doing a bunch of mushrooms and LSD, it's not like I really had my emotional life together, but it was a big component for me. And I went from like straight A student to seeing the machine for what it is, the way that our educational systems in the United States are not here to serve the mind and the soul of the individual. Like, we breed cogs in a machine. And so I stopped giving a fuck about anything that actually didn't serve my spirit. Like, algebra, I'm never gonna fucking use algebra. I'm an artist. Advanced chemistry, I don't care. So I started ditching the classes that didn't matter to me and spending more time hanging out with my friends, smoking weed, coming down here to Venice Beach and like skateboarding on the boardwalk in the middle of what should have been a school day. And I still showed up for everything that really served me. Music classes, history, English, things that I knew were part of my path. And I let go of all the rest. Like, I don't have time to play your game, and I don't care what you tell me about how this will negatively affect my future. Like, we had calculators back then, right? And why do I need to learn this advanced math when I've got this calculator that I can pull out of my backpack? And now look at us. We've all got supercomputers in our pockets all the time. So kind of bringing it back to your question of when did the emotional start to catch up. 15, that particular period was massively important. And another thing that occurred during that time, I have a friend who is also trans that I met in high school. And, out of respect, I won't use names, but I met her and watched her become him. And being the one, probably the only person in the school that had like a firsthand experience with another trans person being so close, I helped to create a self-serving and outwardly serving container for this individual and I to grow together. And everyone else in our friend group was also like super cool. But watching his evolution helped me heal a lot of things with my dad, because I had tremendous shame stories around my dad because of traumas that I'd experienced at a very young age when I would try and, explain my family to other kids. It rattled their binary construct so much that I taught myself or created this story that it was radically unsafe to talk about my family and be truthful, because I would only breed fear and resentment and scorn and everything else. So having this other trans young man in my immediate friend group helped also to heal a lot of things emotionally. And then bringing it back to the other part of your question, kind of expanding into my blackness, because I was raised Jewish. I don't think I mentioned that before. Like, my mom's Jewish. Her last name is Katz. My last name is Katz. Michelle had given up on her Christian identity at the time and given up her family name. So it was really important to my mother to carry on the traditions.
And for those that don't know, your name comes from Hebrew origin.
Yeah, my full name is Aryeh-Or Katz, which means Lion of Light, Aryeh-Or. And Katz is Kohen Tzedek, which is high priest. Thanks, God. So I got my parents, or my mom's last name. I got my mom's religion. I went to Hebrew school, and I had a much stronger Jewish identity than I did a black identity. So I was the only black kid in the synagogue other than my brother. And then suddenly when I'm at this big high school, I finally transfer back to this massive high school, which is Hamilton, right over on Robertson before you hit the 10. And going from smaller schools and programs to like this school of 4,000 and predominantly black. Suddenly my black identity was rushed into my face. And my best friend to this day, another black kid named Trey, who was like just like me. We found each other, like each with guitars slung over our shoulders and, you know, Nirvana t-shirts and skateboards. Like, I thought I was the only one. You want to go skate? Play some tunes? Let's go play some Hendrix, bruh. Frolic. But, you know, having Trey, and then having the rest of the school and like, you know, black culture consistently around me, I started to have all these revelations all at once, and these kind of disparate parts of myself, or unembodied, unexamined parts of myself, started all coming to the surface at once. And it was a lot to grab and hold, but I was voracious for it. I'm voracious for life. I'm voracious for learning and expanding. And everything through, you know, 10th grade through the end of high school, even though I also became a fucking troublemaker, it was a huge exponential spike in my learning and development curve.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, friends, you know how they say kids say the funniest things? Well, I got to tell you, adults sometimes say the funniest things as well when they wear one golden thread. Some of my favorite quotes is somebody saying that they feel like they're making love to themselves without touching themselves. Real. Somebody else said they feel like they're wearing their wizard armor. Others have said they feel like they're hit the gym without needing to hit the gym. Listen, whatever you say, whatever you feel, this is your journey. I'm just here to be an act of service and an offering to the world for you to go hug yourself. No, seriously, go hug yourself. One golden thread at a time. Special code at checkout, 22% off. Use code Drops of Gold. You are golden. We are all connected. Better together. Go hug yourself.
It's such an interesting conversation to have with anybody about just relations, you know, and with you coming from a LBGT, trans, Jewish, black, you know, I mean, keep filling it in, right? And one of the things I examine is what's going on in the world. What's going on in the world, like zooming out in the world in terms of our ability to listen, our ability to listen to understand, our ability versus react or respond, and our ability to have compassion, our ability to see that version of oneness, which isn't about like the soup of oneness, but the everyone by oneness, and what's going on in Israel and Gaza, and what's going on in our cities, and what's going on. I mean, what is going on, man? And from your eyes, and you know, when I hear your music, I hear, you know, a lion voice. I hear impassion. I hear a cry. You know, I hear the pain. I feel the trauma. And I also feel the invitation. So, maybe we could talk a little bit about that, which is what is the invitation to the world to come back into, a degree of ability to see life through the harmonic lens.
I'm going to kind of take it as a two-part question. The first question you asked was, what's going on? Marvin, still ringing true. I think that we are, thank you, Marvin. And thank you to all the great artists who have helped try and steer us closer to our true nature and our true north. But I think what's going on in the world is, intentional division, divide and conquer. It's been the same plan since ancient Rome and before. And now it's just that much easier to divide us. We're so distracted. Again, our little supercomputers in our pockets. And sources of trusted information are fewer and more far between. The ability to disseminate any message, the avalanche of media and opinion, whether it be like actual news media, whether it be the media we consume from each other content creators, the litany of platforms available. We've become, by design, easily distracted and easily deceived. And that means easily controlled. And my invitation, bringing it back to the art in your second part of the question, is how do we look within ourselves to find that quiet place that we know to be the seat of our soul, and listen to the quiet whisper of God through all the noise? How do we get past everything, the barrage that's being sent at us from every direction? Find the center in ourselves, and from that centered place, connect with each other and expand that centered place to be a beacon to others. And, it's the each one teach one, but I think it's each one reach one, right? We can be dynamically electromagnetic as beings. We forget that, we talk about, someone being magnetic, but we are electromagnetic beings, right? Mm-hmm. So we can both attract and draw people into the energy of what we're creating or how we are being. And we can also send energy out. And my purpose in life is to inspire, empower, and uplift the collective consciousness through art and daily action, just being. And I think that the only way that we have a chance as humans, as society, is to start with an individual focus and return a sense of value to personal development. I mean, it's easy to think of in our circles, right? We exist in kind of a conscious echo chamber in a lot of ways. We show up to events where a lot of people have come to think like us, talk like us, walk like us. We share nomenclature. We share common points. If you go to the Midwest and say ayahuasca, people, out of Hootaboot? Is that in Arkansas? Right? So creating an accessibility and also not standing on a soapbox or a high horse next to someone who hasn't started the work. I think that's really important, because we all, on some level, as long as we're in these human flesh sacks, we've got some level of ego and pride and man, I've been doing the work. I'm evolved. I'm embodied. I'm this, I'm that. And that can be highly off-putting to someone who maybe hasn't, How do you extend a hand and an invitation and show people a possibility without becoming preachy and arrogant and making them throw up their defenses, which are all obviously rooted in trauma and so hard to get through?
I think the way you do it is what you just said, which is you just take the how-to off and you just say you reach out to somebody without any pretense or preachiness, and it's a hand of I see you, and I allow myself to be seen.
Yeah.
I love what you said of you said reach one. What did you say?
Yeah, not just each one teach one, each one reach one.
Thank you. Each one reach one. Each one reach one, because it's this whole notion around like a collective consciousness and a it everything is about this, maybe we should let a little bit of that go. It doesn't need to be like this soup. It can be like the one, every one by one. And who appreciates the plants will appreciate maybe this visual, which is, I think the most extraordinary word that I just learned recently in the last 2 years is a word that isn't an English word. It's a Sanskrit word, and the word is setu. Do you know setu?
I don't. What's it mean? So
setu, and I'm just going to colloquially define it. It means benevolent bridge, and it's not the bridge that we look at like a singular bridge that we all need to walk across one by one. It's a bridge like a mycelium network, and it goes everywhere. And it's my bridge that I get to see and meet you, my bridge that I get to meet and see you. And we each get to step on it. Nobody's pulling anybody on. Nobody's being pushed on. It's just an opportunity to step on. I see you. You see me. We meet on the setu, which is this benevolent bridge where it's this notion around there is no preachiness, there is no teachiness. It's just an opportunity to say like, wow, there's this human connectedness. And, we did Hape last night, this beautiful tribal moment at the Kin in Venice. Shout out to the Kin. Good job, Oliver. And, one of the things that I had a moment with a woman who's starting a healing center, and she talked about like the way that we rewire. And she talked about, well, it's either done based upon repetition mantra or somatics. And, even the notion of like going into the mission of like what I've devoted myself to, of like reminding ourselves of the gold that's inside, and we can do that actually by something as seemingly benign and as superficial as what we actually wear on our bodies. And we have 4 million receptors in our bodies, and we can remind ourselves, and yet we've closed ourselves down. So I believe that it's a combination of all these things, but I really love this notion around what you said, which is each one reach one, and everybody gets seen, nobody gets left behind. And I really believe that as humans, if we're expressed, everything opens from there. Yeah. So just to go back to your art, because your art is so expressive. And when we were listening to your music this morning, I know we only listened to one of your, the first song out, but we heard a little clip, which I love, if you want to lean into the mic and share a little bit more of that. But, one of the things that as we were listening to some of your past music and the music this morning, the Victory set, and I love this, and it's powerful. She says, oh, it sounds like a musical. It sounds like it's a one-man show, like a musical. It's not like an album. It's a story arc. So all the songs that are coming. What is the hero's journey of the songs that are coming?
I mean, it's hard to describe. It's almost like a follow along, wait and see. I've never tried to like outwardly articulate what the arc of the full album is. And this is something I talked about in a post a couple of days ago, coming from a era of albums, right? Where artists, bands could make a continuous body of work that was meant to take you on a journey. And knowing that you were going to have this opportunity to spend extended time with your listener. And so you would craft a sonic journey, a sonic ritual for like a sit down. And our attention spans have been degraded, and the way we consume music is different, which is why I'm now releasing the album one song at a time. And even though I know what the journey I crafted is, for myself, I've never actually tried to outwardly articulate it. Because I think even though it can be spoken, it's very subjective. Or the way that art is meant to be. Like, art itself, I believe, is subjective. So I know what the journey means for me. But if I was to articulate what the arc of the journey is, like, does that potentially take away from your or another listener's opportunity?
Yeah.
So I'll say this. Some of the tent poles of the project are exploration of consciousness, invitation to relationship with the divine, exploring trauma and how to transmute trauma into power, making your tests into your testaments, irreverent play, facing your darkness, and returning to love.
I mean, that right there might be the golden mic drop. Yeah, thank you for. I usually ask everyone, "What's the sound of the golden mic drop?" My co-spiriters, and you just did it. Did it again. That's amazing. That's an amazing arc, and wow, mapping that's an extraordinary hero's journey.
It's fun. It's
and
fun.
It continues.
I can't wait to share it with you and the rest of the world.
Oh, I can't wait for it to be shared. So I've got a few more questions, but definitely want to also, how do people learn about you that want to follow you and follow your beautiful album and all the goodness to come?
Thank you for the plug. Thank you for the plug. Everything is available just under my name, which is Aryeh-Or. So Aryeh-Or, Aryeh-Or.com. Same thing on Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere. The only place where it's different is Instagram because they don't have hyphens. So it's ARYEH_OR. But through my website or through the links in my Instagram, you can find everything.
Beautiful. I've got a few more questions, but before I even do that, I just got to say, like, I designed for me the world's perfect tea, and I designed it for me, and clearly I designed it for you too.
Oh my God, I love this thing. It's beautiful. I love what you were saying about, the feeling, right? And this kind of brings me back to each one teach one, each one reach one. Because to teach is to put information outward.
Yeah.
Right? To reach, in a lot of ways, is to invite in. Someone has to be receptive to your reach, and they have to invite you in. And you're also reaching with an open palm and inviting someone in. So this idea of the exoteric versus the esoteric, right? Outer and inner lives, which makes me think of, like, what is gold, right? What is our fascination with gold? Why one golden thread? Gold is a massively powerful conduit for electricity and energy. And there's a reason that there's become a cultural obsession with it. Like, we fling the word alchemy around a lot, right? And in most people's understanding of alchemy, it's transmuting base metals into gold. But that is the exoteric view of alchemy, which was really just coding hidden the real knowledge, which is inner alchemy. Everyone became obsessed with mercury, sulfur, salt. How do I make material gold? When the real secret of the alchemist is how do you transmute and find alignment with mind, body, and soul, the actual Holy Trinity, to reach the gold of spirit, that golden light that is all of our birthright. And it's in all of us. But, we all shoot down here to earth and choose to forget so we can choose to learn again.
Oh, let's go.
Ashe, baby. Show me the way.
Ashe all day. Spin the wind, baby.
Oh, you mean we could have had this on disco mode this whole time? Sheesh. Let's go. I'm still a big ass kid. I just love shit to play with.
Courtesy of High by Kozo. Another shout out to one of my favorite humans that are bringing the sacred and the physical.
Dope.
You know, one thing I want to do before we complete, which is so cool, is as a multidisciplinary artist, you said something in the kitchen as we were having our mushroom coffee. Shout out to Victory, thank you. Mm-hmm. And you talked about like, oh, I taught myself that. It was something along those lines. And and my question to you is, my sense is, yes, you've had teachers, you've had mentors, but my sense is like as a lion, like you just go figure shit out.
100%. It started with, again, like, how do I figure out how to be a man? Well, the only man in my life is figuring out how to be a woman. So from an early age, I realized it is completely up to me to turn my power of observation up to an 11 and really intentionally take in everything around me and develop my version of manhood by analyzing what I perceive to be effective, positive archetypes and examples of what a man is. And that same I've got to figure it out mentality just flooded into every aspect of my life. So like, I've never had a set like music teacher. I taught myself to play guitar ostensibly. I taught myself how to paint. I've taught myself how to take apart my truck and put it back together. Shout out YouTube University though. But I think that self-determinism is kind of lost. All of us are immensely capable. We just don't put ourselves in scenarios where we have to or even want to. Like the accessibility of having someone else to do it for you, whatever it may be, has stripped us of one of our kind of primary traits that I think is super important. And this actually circles back to, those early psychedelic trips. These headphones are killing me. I'm just going to drop these. I'm trying to keep them on for too long. One of those really early psychedelic trips, I think, on like 2 hits of LSD, sitting in a hot tub. And I discovered what for me at the time was the meaning of life. And this still holds true to some extent. What I came to is that the meaning of life is the search, or the perpetual search for meaning. Everything that we are as a society, every advancement has come from asking why. Why does that tumbleweed roll so effortlessly? And then we've got the wheel. Why does fire illuminate? Why does lightning illuminate the sky? We've got electricity and ovens and all of the advancement of technology in society, even though some of it has definitely taken us down a dark path. Everything that we are has come from getting curious and asking why, how. And having that, again, as one of my really early understandings, made me always more curious to figure out the why and how myself than to just pay someone to do the thing. And that adaptability, that determinism to figure it out has leaked into every aspect of my life. And I think that's one thing that I hope that through my life I can reach out and invite others to do, is to get curious, get physical, stumble through things, be willing to fail, and enjoy the process of learning something new just because. Just try shit. Just try shit. We're here on Earth dancing in a fucking monkey suit. Like, why wouldn't we just try shit?
The number one question that's asked before the age of 4.
Why?
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 Now, what happens, as we know, is that as we calcify, as we become an adult, as we're told, as we taught to conform and what have you, all of a sudden why becomes almost a place of challenge or cynicism.
Sure.
Or from a place of false elevation. And I always feel into this notion of like coming back to that inner child of why, and being curious is the art of emotional maturity. So I will give you a reflection in this moment and say, like, you never lost. You were never lost in terms of your emotional development. Your intellectual was there. Your artistic was here. And the fact that you come from a place of why with childlike curiosity, my friend, you are a man of high emotional intelligence.
Thank you, brother.
So, chapter 1 of my book, if you want to put your hand over your heart, say thank you. I know.
Thank you. I know. When's the book coming out? When do I read?
It's coming. It's coming. Put your hand over your heart. We're going to complete this by the golden thread that you chose on your right wrist. So I'm going to ask you the same question that has been asked of thousands. What does it mean to you, Aryeh, to live life golden?
To stay constantly curious. To be unapologetically expressive, emotive, engaged. To dance like no one's watching, sing like no one's listening. To always dig a little deeper, be willing to shine that golden light into the darkness and mine for the gems, even if they're guarded by a fucking snarling demon. To give, because gold is ostensibly a representation of power in our current society, and with great power comes great responsibility. So not if, but because I am blessed with a golden life, it's my responsibility to give as much gold away as I can, by any means necessary and by any means possible.
And what is a self-love tip that you've discovered to tap back to that when we forget, when we're in the hurricane?
Put your fucking phone away. Honestly, and it's been not an easy practice for myself. But again, curiosity and space for thought, space for reflection is so necessary. And when we're feeling down, when most of us, in our modern society are feeling any kind of way, we reach for the nearest distraction, whether it's having a drink or a smoke or a Netflix or a doom scrolling unconsciously, and we know that all the algorithms have been programmed to lock us in. And my biggest self-love tip is put away your phone, remove yourself from all technology, take your shoes off, go be with nature for a day. Allow yourself enough time and space to remember who and what you are. And nature will always lead you there. And you will lead yourself there. You can be locked in an apartment in a high rise in Brooklyn. Just get quiet and still enough to remember yourself.
Complete this sentence. The golden thread that connects us all is
infinite love.
Ashe. And finally, just a shout out to our sponsor of this podcast, One Golden Thread. What's the feeling? What's the feeling of the feeling for you? You've been rocking these threads for a minute.
Yeah.
Years, actually.
Years. 2018, I think I got my first OGT. It's effortless is the feeling. Just effortless.
You want to take us out with a little spoken word?
Oh, God.
Anything coming through? Well, everything's coming through, but maybe even it could even be another little chapter 2 of the hero's journey.
Okay. So I'll give you a little ditty. The last verse, like that particular song that kind of charts my history, ostensibly comes in 3 verses, even though there is no chorus. It just flows on and on. But this is kind of true of this podcast and this whole conversation. I'm just here to let you know about how the artist was born, my creativity, the way I made it out of the storm. To both my parents' credit, they always told me I could be or do anything. Got my first guitar at 7 years old, started to play and sing. Same age, I started acting. A couple years later, I caught a love affair with rapping. No matter what happened, I always knew what I was destined to do. 6 words to my own self, be true. So after high school, I took a little time out for me. Eventually, I did go and get a college degree. First black man in my family tree, able to say that. I shattered the pattern, gave my ancestors they payback. Don't need a Maybach to show I made it. Put the puzzle pieces together, I paper mache'd it. Through sheer will and skill, cultivated the man that I am. Now I'm unfuckwittable like God had planned. And I'm standing as living proof that by standing firm in your truth, it don't matter what happened to you, ain't nothing that you can't do. When you learn to transmute your traumas into the fuel for your dreams and hold yourself with honor and self-esteem, I'm just here to let you know that you're beautiful. And you've got the power inside to shape your reality. Impossible is a fallacy. So speak what you seek until you see what you said and manifest all the dreams in your head. Go and get it. Golden mic drop. Unfuckwittable.
Aryeh-Or, cats. You are golden, brother.
So I want to thank you for having me, brother.
Dude.
First of many.
Warlock handshake right here.
Oh, yeah.
You know it.
There it is.
You know it.
Thank you for joining us on Drops of Gold. We trust you found listening as delightful as we found creating. Now let me tell you, it takes a village to nourish a dream. Big shout outs to One Golden Thread for powering the pod, to co-producers Mark Shapiro, Josh Robertson, and Victory for bringing it all to life, Kat Benzova for her stunning guest portraits, and special thanks to artist Taib for featuring his electrifying new track, Departures. And infinite love to you for your curiosity and commitment to living in your highest vibrational truth. Aho! Here we grow. We are all designed to be reminded we are already golden inside. I'm Jeff Scult, wishing you a radically yes fuck yes day. Ashe.